Hello and welcome back to Tranquility du Jour, nourishing conversations about living a full and meaningful life with doses of tranquility. This is episode 537. I'm your host, Kimberly Wilson, bringing you tranquility through this medium since 2005. Today, we are talking about how to get over I got it with Elayne Fluker, and this is her new book. Her subtitle, How to Stop Playing Superwoman, Get Support, and Remember that Having It All Doesn't Mean Doing It Alone. This sounds like the perfect book that I could have used 20 years ago. Anyway, in this episode, she shares how to stop being the strong one, how to show up for ourselves, and adopt a possibility mindset. I think you're going to love this episode. Now, a reminder to please hit subscribe in your favorite podcast app so you don't miss an episode of Tranquility du Jour. And also, if you're new to Tranquility du Jour, a huge welcome, and you can find out more over at kimberlywilson.com/new. Now, before we hear from Elayne, a few things I want to mention. One is that the TDJ Lifestyle e-course, where we're going to be exploring the 5 tenets of Tranquility du Jour, ranging from compassion, creativity, style, mindfulness, and wellness. This is going to launch this spring and would love to have you join us. You can join the waitlist at kimberlywilson.com/TDJ Lifestyle. And there's also a link in the show notes, which can be found at kimberlywilson.com/537. Also, save the date for our next TDJ Live Masterclass, a free event happening on June 20th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And July 10th is our mid-year virtual retreat. So this is our chance to hit the pause button, spend 3 hours together, check in, and notice what's working, how's this year gone so far, and what do we want more of and less of. Always a good thing. Now, Elayne Fluker, she is the host of the Support is Sexy podcast, featuring interviews with more than 500 diverse women entrepreneurs around the world. And she's the founder of Academy, an online learning platform educating and empowering Black women entrepreneurs. Most recently, Elayne was named a founder of change for Academy as part of the American Express 100 for 100 program, featuring 100 innovative Black women entrepreneurs. As an expert in media, pop culture, entrepreneurship, and women's empowerment, Fluker's been a featured guest in front of millions on national shows and networks such as Today, Nightline, Headline News, Inside Edition, CNN, VH1, CBS, BET, Fox, and Sirius XM Radio. Welcome, Elayne.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here, Kimberly.
Congrats on your upcoming book. And I love the title and subtitle. Get Over, I Got It. Love the subtitle. How to Stop Playing Superwoman, Get Support, and Remember that Having It All Doesn't Mean Doing It Alone. So tell us a little bit about what led you to write, I think, such a profound book, which, by the way, listeners, hits shelves in May, but you can pre-order now.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thanks again for having me. What led me to write this? Well, first of all, I call it I got it syndrome, but it's something that I didn't know that I even had or was experiencing. So basically, it's the, as I'm sure you are, unapologetically ambitious women, no matter what we're doing in our lives, we're juggling many things. It's so interesting. I just saw an article today that talked about how now women are, especially women with children, are working from home, teaching their children, homeschooling, and now planning vaccines for their parents. A lot of us are the default person to handle the vaccines for the parents. And we do what we have to do, right? But we don't have to do it all alone. And I didn't know that until I attended a personal development workshop in 2015, actually, called Momentum in New York. And being in this room of powerful leaders and people from all different industries, activists, actors, just all these people who were top of their game. And we struggled, most of us, with 2 things: being able to ask for love and support. And by struggle, Kimberly, I mean, like, don't make me do it, cry, I'll do anything else but that. And I didn't realize that until I saw a reflection of myself in them. So that's what made me start to be more intentional about asking for support. And then as I began to talk to other women about it and say this mantra that I have around support is sexy, and my podcast is called Support is Sexy, and other women are like, yeah, I have that problem too. That's when it's evolved into, you know what, maybe this is a message I need to just remind women that not only that you can ask for support, but that you deserve support.
Yeah, I think that's so big. And you start out the book with the introduction talking about Kate Spade's suicide and how that affected you. And then you
Mm-hmm.
also share kind of your own experience with depression. And so I thought it was so interesting to kind of start the book in that realm because, right, I think many of us can remember where we were whenever we got the news about that and how shocking it was. Because as you write in the book, it's like, this is a woman who seemed to have it all. So what went wrong? And of course, we know depression, anxiety, they have massive effects on people. And a lot of people don't know that it's happening to their loved ones. So tell
Mm-hmm.
us a little bit about why that piece really kind of like hit you and made it into the introduction and kind of the framework for the book as a whole.
It was so interesting. I've never worked personally for Kate Spade and don't know her or didn't know her personally, but of course, I mean Kate Spade, right? Her clothing, her bags, her everything just made us happy, and from all appearances, from the outside, she seemed like she would be happy because, right, we associate all these things, a money, a family, a husband, a business, all these things that we might think make people happy or should make folks happy, which is obviously, as you know, as a therapist, not always true. It's never the things, right? But for me, it just hit me like, wow, even Kate Spade felt that way. Even Kate Spade, of course, she's a human being and all, but all the things I just mentioned, it just was like, good grief, we are really, a lot of us are not even struggling. I say suffering, and again, I don't know her, or didn't know her personally, so I don't know if it was that she felt alone and those kinds of things. But because of my own personal experience as a teenager, though not as an adult, of trying to take my own life at about the age of 15 or so, I know that loneliness feeling is a part of it. And I just wonder, someone like her or anyone like her who might have access, you think, to resources and help and support and those things. I just more so, it made me more so wonder what kind of support that did she have, and did she know that she could reach out. I believe in the article, her husband, yes, Andy, her husband, said that that she was getting help, I guess, speaking to doctors and that kind of thing. But I don't know, it just really hit me that, Kate Spade, me, you, a lot of us just struggle with this idea of whatever it is isn't fulfilling us. And it made it more urgent for me to make sure that women know, women of all ages. And a lot of the studies now show that women, it's not only teen girls that are trying to, commit suicide or having these feelings. It is women in the age group of a Kate Spade who are older and might, we might think are more settled and secure. So as you can see, it still has me sort of discombobulated to even talk about it, but it just felt for me so urgent for us to know that we deserve support. And it doesn't matter what you quote unquote have, it's important that you have the support.
Well, and you start the book, right, with section one, and I love you've laid it out nicely, right? So, section one, having it all doesn't mean doing it alone. So, I was curious if you could explain to our listeners, what do you think having it all kind of means? And is it more of like your Instagram have it all, or is it your like truth life, right? Have it all.
Exactly. The Instagram, the highlight reel, I call it social media, right? I think, well, one thing I think is important that I learned just even during the process of writing this book is that our all, is self-defined, right? We get to define what our all looks like. So my all is going to look different than your all, which look different than Kate Spade's all, which looks different than, my friends, your friends, etc. So I think that's what's important. I'm glad you mentioned about Instagram, because sometimes we are defining our all based on what we see from other people. Like these things appear to make that other person happy. Again, we don't know. As the example we mentioned, we're always projecting our insecurities or our desires, et cetera, on what we see in a pretty picture. And sometimes, I even have to remind myself, maybe it's just a pretty picture. That's it. It doesn't mean she has everything. It doesn't mean she takes vacations all the time. It doesn't mean she's a rock star, or it does, but it doesn't reflect what my all means. So I think, and I have an exercise in the first chapter defining your all, about thinking what really matters to you, what's important to you. And that, of course, can evolve and change over time. But I think that's where we need to start, as opposed to what does everyone else say is important? What is having it all look like to everyone else? And I think that's how we sort of get caught up in that cycle of pursuing things that aren't necessarily for us or that don't fulfill us.
And I think you raise a good point. And, another piece with this is like, you do pursue what you think will bring you happiness. It does for a while. And then you realize this
Mm-hmm.
isn't me anymore, right? And I need to make a career shift or a relationship shift or a city shift, right? And so I'm curious kind of what you would say to people who they do have it all, at least what they wanted at that point, but now they want something different, and how to be okay with that.
That is such a good point. I'm so glad you bring that up, because I talk about in the realm of me going from working in media, which was a career that I loved, to full time in media at a publication. I was at Martha Stewart before I left and started my business, or to focus on my business full time. And it was so difficult to leave, Kimberly, because I wasn't miserable. I loved what I did. I love the people I work with, but there's something there that wasn't fulfilling me anymore. Now, I had worked in the industry for 20 something years at great publications and been on television, all the things. And I think it's often most difficult for us to make that transition when it's not something we can put our finger on as to what went wrong. Sometimes nothing did go wrong. It's just time for you to evolve, time for you to grow, time for you to take a different path. And I think that we often end up stuck in situations that look good from the outside, or that maybe even to us feel good to satisfy certain parts of ourselves, whether our ego or just feeling like, well, I accomplished this thing. Now I just got to roll with it for the rest of my life. But you can get support, and you also deserve to be fulfilled. And if that means making a shift and a change and getting support doing that, again, you don't even have to do that alone, right? Making a change, then that's what you need to do. Because I think a lot of times that's how we get caught up in these cycles. Like, well, nothing's wrong. And everyone says I should be happy. So I guess I'll just be happy here. Same with relationships. I mean, that applies to all different areas of our lives. But I think for a lot of us as women, especially career, especially if you're making good money and there's no quote unquote reason for you to go away. You don't hate. It's easy to leave when you hate your job, right? Or it's a toxic. I shouldn't say easy, but it might be easier to feel like, okay, I really need to make this change. When you can't figure out what's wrong, it's more difficult. And sometimes nothing's wrong. It's just time for a change.
Absolutely. And I think this leads us into section 2 about asking empowering questions, right?
Yes.
And
Mm-hmm.
so I was curious because you kind of start with the idea of living the question, right? And so what does it mean? How would you explain that to our listeners about living the question?
Yes, I did an interview with this woman, Patricia Moreno, back on my podcast on episode 26. So I've done 700 something episodes, and I still quote that. So there are no favorite. I think you know this as a podcaster. You don't want to say you have favorites, but hers is definitely an episode, and that statement is something that I talk about a lot. And then I re-interviewed her again for the book, and that was about in 2018. But she is Patricia Moreno, who's the founder of Intensati, the Intensati workout and lifestyle, is the first person who said that phrase to me, live the question. And I think as ambitious women, go-getters, or women in general, honestly, we're often, I was going to say burdened with, but challenged to always have the answers. If we don't have the answer, we want to find out the answer. If you're a mom, you need the answer for the kids. You got to figure things out with school, with your parents. I'm going through this. You got to figure out where they get the vaccines. We're just prone to have the answers, to nurture, to make sure everyone's okay and safe and all of those things. Patricia's challenge to us all is to be able to open up, sort of surrender in a way, and live the question. And that can be a very vulnerable place to be in. It's very much something that I've been trying to tap more into, is your feminine energy. So sort of that receiving, nurturing, because I'm a go-getter, I'm accomplished, I do things, I get things done. I'm a person, Kimberly, who's just like, just tell me what to do. Just tell me the answer. I'll go do it. I'll quote unquote make it happen, right? I try to be careful about that language around women. Just make it happen. It's like, well, now I'm going to go crazy trying to make it happen. It's just, so this idea of living the question is something that Patricia said, of us to just be in this space of being open and saying an empowered question is obviously not, why am I such a jerk? Why didn't I figure this out? Why haven't I done this by now? It could be, okay, I want to create an opportunity for my book to reach, 1 million women. That's something that I say, even if it's not sell 1 million copies, that would be great. It's like, I just want this message to reach 1 million women. I have no idea how that's going to happen, but I'm going to live this question. What do I need to do to create a space where this can reach a million women? Who are the people that I might need to meet? I wonder what kind of new things I can do. I have no answers for any of that. If you do, you let me know. But I have no answers for any of that. But just being in that space. Now, the old me, before learning this lesson from Patricia, would have been hardcore trying to figure out how I can make that happen. So it really is this idea of living the question is being able to surrender, courageously surrender, and allow it to show up for you. And when you kind of release that too, I found in my experience of trying this, the answer shows up in ways you never imagined, whether it's from a person you never imagined, a conversation, and then all of a sudden we often write those off to a coincidence. Like, oh my gosh, I was just trying to figure that out the other day. And it's like, well, no, you were a little bit more open so you can receive the answers in different ways.
I love that. Yeah, because I think we are, at least for me, I'm always looking, okay, what's the 5-step plan, right?
Exactly.
How do we
Just
do this?
tell me.
Give me the bullets.
Especially if you're a doer, you want to know that makes sense. And that be the reason you're successful for a lot of us. It's the reasons why women make the big money and the corporate, all the things are about having the answers and being in that space of, okay, just live the question. Not that you're not going to plan and try, we're not saying just lay back, surrender in that kind of way. But I do think it's very freeing, or at least that's what I found for me when I just say, you know what, this is something I want to accomplish. These are the questions that I'm asking right now and that I'm living right now. And then it always shows up, always. It never fails.
Well, and so section 3, you share how to let go of the how, which I think is a little bit what we're talking about, right?
Exactly.
And how do you encourage readers to show up for themselves?
I think being very intentional about it. One of the acronyms that I use is actually the word HELP, HELP, when people ask, how do I remember to ask for support? Or as you said, to show up for myself. So the H is this idea that we first talked about that's in the subtitle. Having it all doesn't mean doing it all alone. Think about all the women that you admire. Most of them, whatever level of success, they will tell you if you ask them, these are the people who helped me. These are the folks who supported me, whether it's family or team. And I say in the book, even Oprah has Gail, like everybody got somebody. But here you are trying to do everything by yourself because of all the reasons that we mentioned. So just pausing for a second and remembering whatever your all is, having that doesn't mean that you have to do it alone for you to feel accomplished and those kinds of things. And also acknowledge there are reasons also that a lot of us may feel like we have to do things or prove ourselves and do it alone because here in the US, women still make less than men. There's still a lot of discrimination, so there are societal things and actual circumstances that might cause us also to think that. So this isn't about beating yourself up. This is just acknowledging, okay, these might be some of the reasons that I feel this way, but I can make a different choice and know that I deserve support. Then the E is about what we mentioned of asking those empowered questions, being open and asking yourself not things again like, why am I so stupid? Why don't I know how to do this? Or why didn't I accomplish this already? Just empowered questions of, okay, who might be someone that I can talk to? What might be an organization with access to the internet? It's just like, what do I need to Google in order to get the head start on whatever this is? The L is living the question as we discussed and letting go of the how. So that is this idea of, again, surrender, not having control or not needing to have control because it opens you up for the support to show up in whatever way it needs to. So that's a way of even letting go of the how is a way of showing up for yourself. You've decided what you'd like to accomplish or experience. You've created the intention. Now you're open to letting it show up for you in the way that it's supposed to. And then the P is believing in the possibilities. You can't do all that great stuff and all this talk and things I'm sharing about and then be like, but it doesn't really work. Or it's not really, even if you have it in your subconscious, like, okay, I'm going to do that, but, we'll see. Well, let's shift our thinking and just believe that it's possible. Believe in the possibilities. That's another form of surrender, I would say, and know that it'll show up for you.
Well, I love that because that leads me to, of course, section 4, which is all about the possibilities, right? And I love what you've coined possibility mindset, right?
Yes.
So tell us, because I think you're right. Yeah, you can have all these goals, these dreams, these plans, but there's still a part of you that's like, but I don't think it's going to happen. Like this is a little pie in the sky, right? So how do you encourage us to adopt a possibility mindset?
I think of freeing ourselves up to dream the impossible dream, but dream the dream that really is the thing that you want to create. So going back to what we said earlier about defining your all, what really matters to you. And I think you create that possibility by letting go of the how. Because I always tell people and clients that I work with for coaching and those kind of things, well, if you knew how, you probably would have done it by now. You're a go-getter woman, you're ambitious. Like if someone told you the how, that would have been accomplished already. So we don't know. Let's just all accept we don't know the how there, but it is a possibility. And a lot of the great, again, the people you admire, the greatest achievements, the best innovation were because someone believed in the possibility. I mean, even to the point of, I was speaking to a friend about this today, me as a Black woman here in the United States, I'm from New York, but I live in Georgia now, and there's a big turn here. Are you in the US?
DC, yeah.
DC, yeah. So
Go Georgia.
So Georgia, I know. I'm always nervous about telling people, you're welcome,
Totally.
But in New York, it was just, I don't have any party affiliation, but New York usually went blue, it's Democratic, but I still vote part of the process. But I was never thinking that it might change. Here in Georgia, it's been traditionally a quote unquote red state, as they say, not to get into politics, but I felt like I really had made a difference being here, voting. I voted for the first time here this past cycle, November and recently. And it was just like, that was a possibility. Somebody, Stacey Abrams, believed that could happen, So just as a practical example to the ultimate example of, I don't know, flying in a ton, multi-ton machine of iron in the sky. Somebody believed in that possibility. Somebody believed in the possibility of me being able to talk to you and see your beautiful face here on the phone, So those things are all possibilities that certainly when you first start, you don't know the how. And also to think about, if I could just add, if you make mistakes, which you will, if you fall on your face, which you will, if you quote unquote fail, which you will, those are all experiments. All of the greatest inventors, all of the greatest people who have accomplished things, they figured out ways how not to do it on the way to that ultimately works. And that's something for me, especially as an entrepreneur, that I had to realize I'm not going to get it perfect. And those are the times that I actually learn the most, when I bump my head. It's like, okay, that way doesn't work. Let me try a different way. So that's another way too, to stay open to the possibilities, not perfection, the possibility.
Yeah, I like that, possibility, not perfection, or progress,
Absolutely.
not perfection.
Exactly. That's right. Because you're always, as long as you're trying, you're making progress.
So tell us about your podcast. Support is Sexy. 700 freaking episodes. Are you kidding me?
Oh my gosh,
honey?
I'm tired right now thinking about it. I know so Support is Sexy, I interview women entrepreneurs all around the world. I've personally interviewed over 500 women at this point. And I started in 2016 to connect with other women entrepreneurs, to learn from them, really, to learn the ways, as I mentioned, that they bump their heads along the way. Because I was listening to podcasts at the time, some that I love very much, that I still listen to, John Lee Dumas, Entrepreneurs on Fire, and Pat Flynn, Smart Passive Income were the first that I listened to. And they would, of course, they'd interview women here and there, but it was mostly men that they interviewed. And the women that I felt like at the time, at least, it's 2016, that they spoke to, were like, I launched a program over the weekend and it made $1 million. And I'm like, well, who are these women? I don't know. That's not my friends. My friends and I are like, girl, I need to get a job. Like, this entrepreneurship thing is hard, so trying to figure it out. So I wanted to hear those stories, even if it were from those successful women who ultimately launched the business. But what about, okay, you didn't just wake up and decide to do that. What's the story? And then how did you get support along the way? So that's the premise of the podcast. And that has been the way that it's grown over time. And when I first launched, the reason I have so many episodes, I was doing it 5 days a week. Because in my little crazy head, I was quote unquote channeling Oprah, even though Oprah had support and I did not, in my little apartment in Brooklyn but I just wanted to do something different and show up different, interviewing women entrepreneurs 5 days a week. But then I did that for 2 years and editing myself and everything. So I had to learn my own lesson, eventually getting support. Support also was me slowing down a little bit. And I went down to 3 days a week when I was traveling. And now we have one a week. I think 700 something is pretty good amount of content. So, but that's how it started. And it's been an amazing experience. And that is where the idea from the book came from, because of having these conversations of women just coming to the point wherever along their journey where they realize, I got to get some help.
Absolutely. I love it. I love that you were doing five because you're like, well, if Oprah can do it,
If
meanwhile, yeah,
Oprah can
her
do it,
team.
exactly. She was like 400. She literally had 400 something people on her team. Like, what am I doing? It was crazy. And that was before I knew how to batch interview, do
Oh,
several in a day,
yes,
before I knew
yes.
about all these scheduling tools. Again, I bumped my head big time. So I'd be up in there at 4 in the morning, like falling asleep on my laptop trying to edit a podcast. Good times, good times.
Honey,
But
it's impressive. It's impressive. But yeah, you're
it
like, but
was
I've
good.
learned and now it's
I
once a week.
learned, and now we don't do that anymore. We've done that. Exactly. Yeah.
Well, so any final thoughts you'd like to share with our listeners about your book?
Yeah, talking about this idea of defining it all, I feel like that's a message that's been coming up a lot lately just in life because of, well, first of all, last year, 2020 was tough on a lot of us, whether we lost someone or not, and God bless anyone who did. Um, but now moving into 2021, we were all hoping, I think, okay, so as soon as the calendar changes over, it's going to be all good. And first of all, the universe is like, I didn't make that calendar. You guys made that calendar. That calendar actually means nothing. So we're going to ride this out a little bit more. You all still have some evolving to do. Right. So I think I say that to say, though, I think what's more important, or at least what's kept me sane, is this idea of reflecting and pausing and thinking, what really matters to me? Or matters even more now. So I'm very close to my parents. I moved from New York to Georgia to be closer to them. They're in Stone Mountain. I'm about 20 minutes away in Decatur. And they always mattered to me. I always loved them. But during the time of the pandemic, I was actually staying with them at the time, luckily. So I was able to be around them. And they just matter so much to me, their safety and them being well and their health. And it just matters so much even more, made me maybe realize it. Maybe I was taking for granted just our relationship is so much closer now. And I just take care of them in a way that I didn't know was going to happen so quickly. They're well, thank goodness, but they still need all kinds of support. They're hilarious. But that is something that I decided, you know what, this really matters to me. So when I go over there to visit them once a week and I wear my mask the whole time I'm there, once or twice a week, I am present because it matters to me. I'm not on my phone. I might look at my phone sometimes, but I'm not on my phone. I don't, take my laptop unless they need me to look up something, which my dad now always wants me to look up something. But I used to go and have my laptop and still be working, but I'm like, well, at least I'm here. No, I decided that this matters to me. So I have to create time for this. I have it on my calendar, visit mom and dad Sunday from 3 till whatever. Like whatever they need, they have me for those hours. I am there. So would like to challenge all of your listeners to really think about what matters to you, whether it's people in your life and you decide, you know what, I really need to make sure that I carve out time for these relationships. My girlfriends who all live in different places, so we never saw each other a lot anyway, but because of the virus, having these Zoom calls occasionally where we all get on there and just act like we're still in college again, it is just mind blowing how important and special that time is. So whatever it looks like to you, and also, I will say, Kimberly, defining your all also means what do you need to let go of? What no longer serves you anymore? What no longer? I'll leave this. One of the phrases that I learned back in 2008 was from a boss I used to work with. She was speaking at a conference. And, I say women, they asked her the question they always ask women, but never ask men, like, how do you balance it all? She was president of the company. So she said, you have to decide what matters and what doesn't matter. If you decide that it matters, make it matter a lot. If you decide that it doesn't matter, then it shouldn't matter at all. And that just stuck with me from 2008 to today when I'm sharing it with you. It's like if I decide that, for example, if I have a child and soccer practice is at 3 in the afternoon, and maybe I would like to go be there for soccer practice every, day, but I can't do that. That doesn't matter as much as being home at 7 to have dinner with my child and the family. So it's not that you don't care about soccer at 3, but one of those has to matter more. And if you decide that it matters more that you're home at 7 and you can't make it to 3, doesn't mean you don't care, but you can't decide that about the 3 o'clock practice and then worry about it constantly or beat yourself up constantly. So I interpreted that as what she means. Like you have to decide it doesn't matter at all. You made a decision about that. This is what's more important right now. So that's what I would say. Think about what matters, make it matter a lot, or decide, you know what, that no longer matters or isn't a priority right now. And then you got to let it go. You can't beat yourself up about it.
Well, and what I think is so important about that too, that you're saying is oftentimes we say these are our values or this is what's important to me. But then we look at our calendar, our schedule, and we're like, but it doesn't show up at all. right?
Oh my goodness, yes, in the book, you're so right. Maybe this is the therapy part of you. I interviewed Dr. Zoe Shaw, who's a psychotherapist, and she said the same thing that she has her clients, often women who say these certain things matter to them, like the soccer practice and or having dinner every night. And but on their calendar, you see that they're working until 10 p.m. and it doesn't align. So does your lifestyle and how you're shaping your life align with what you say your values are and what matters? So I'm so glad you mentioned it. You're so right. That's what they always say, right? If you really want to know what someone cares about these days, look at their schedule or their calendar. And you can tell by what's on it and what's not on it.
Absolutely. It's such a good reminder.
Hmm.
And if it's like, oh no, but I do really care about this stuff, let me then make some changes to get it on my calendar, right?
Exactly, exactly. And another thing that she actually suggested that I think is important, and I'm guilty of this, when you make the change or the tweak, it doesn't have to be a sweeping change. So, for example, if you do have, a family with children, et cetera, and you now decided you want to get up every morning and work out from 6 to 3, 6 to 6 to 3, 6 to 6:30, and you say, okay, so I want the family now to everyone has to go to bed at 7, even though now they go to bed at 9, go to bed at 7 and stay asleep till 7:30 the next. Well, that's a sweeping change for your entire family. Maybe you just get up just 15 minutes earlier than normal while everybody's still asleep. Everybody goes to bed at the same time they used to. And all it's just tiny, tiny steps, these increments. And then as usual, it'll grow over time. But when you try to make a huge change like that, a sweeping change all at once, especially if other people are involved, it's going to be very difficult. So I think that's another way too of, okay, this matters to me. How can I make a change, but how can I make it in incremental steps so that it doesn't disrupt my entire life?
Yeah, beautiful. It's a great reminder, right? And then we're more likely to stick with it.
Yes, exactly. It's just like, this isn't working. I can't get the kids to bed. Nobody supports me. Throw it out the window. Like, well,
Totally.
or you could just get up 15 minutes earlier and not try
Right.
to disrupt your whole life.
Right, right. No, I mean,
Yeah.
and it's funny because that seems so obvious and yet it isn't. I think we
No, it's
definitely,
not.
yeah.
Exactly. I know. When she said it, I was like, oh, that's right. And I don't even have children. Even I'm guilty of. Now I'm going to wake up every day at 5 in the morning. It's like, okay, well, you've been sleeping until 8 every day. So what are we? How
Right.
how are we doing this? Let's just try 7:30 first,
Exactly. I
and
was
then
like, let's start with
let's
7:30,
start
see
with
how that
7:30.
goes.
Celebrate that, and then see how it goes. Exactly. And do you even need to get up at 5? Like, let's just take it slow. Right.
I love it. Such good reminders. Incremental change. And
Exactly.
my last question for you, Elaine, the name of the podcast is Tranquility du Jour. So I always like to ask my guests, like, how do you find tranquility in your everyday, especially right now when things are definitely a little harder than they used to be?
Yeah, one thing I learned that's been very powerful from my coach, Margot Geller, I mention her all the time on my podcast, is the importance of, she says, first feel, second solve. And I think I actually mentioned, I interviewed her in the book too, but first feel, second solve. So, for example, the other day, last weekend, I was participating in a vision board workshop. I was an attendee for this workshop I've done for 10 years. I used to be in person in New York. It was virtual, but it was so beautiful. But I had well, on one of the days, Kimberly, it was Saturday and Sunday, I just felt really heavy and I didn't know why. And, sort of not depressed or down. I definitely know, when I have feelings of depression, but just something just felt really heavy. And I decided to go with that. And I just said, okay, something's going on. I feel really heavy right now. I don't know what it is. So allowing myself to feel, not try to talk myself out of it, not even trying to necessarily understand it. If I can reflect and say what might have happened in the past day, that might have triggered that. But if there's nothing, then okay, this is just, it's how I'm feeling right now. I'm feeling kind of down right now. Let me, do whatever I want to do in order to pick myself up. So the solve comes after the feeling. And I used to be a person that, oh, I feel down today. I better go do this, or I better do that, or just even skipping past it and not even acknowledging that something feels heavy. And the solve, even though I didn't know this is what was going to happen during the vision workshop, she happened to have a portion where we were all dancing. It was sort of a, dance or movement kind of thing. This woman in Turkey led it. It was beautiful. So you're seeing people all over the screen on Zoom dancing around. And afterwards, she had us stop and just hold ourselves. And I just cried. I just cried like a baby. Don't know why, but that was the solve that I needed. So this idea of first feel, second solve is how it brings me back to tranquility. Because after that, I felt lighter and felt better. And it was what I needed at the time, but wasn't something that I would have been able to solve. But because I allowed myself to feel it, that's what came through. So that's what's been important to me overall during this time with so much disruption and chaos and just so much going on in the world and lives lost and that thing. And as an empath, I'm feeling it all. So I just have to know, okay, this is how I'm feeling today, or I'm feeling super happy today. Oh, I wonder what's going on. Allow myself to feel that. And then if there's anything that needs to be quote unquote solved, then I look at, what are the things that can come out of this feeling, or what might I learn from this feeling?
Yeah, no, it's so great. It's like really tuning into the heart versus trying to
Yeah,
always figure everything out with the head, right?
that's right. That's right. And I used to always go to head first. I was good at acknowledging the feeling. So saying, I feel down, I feel this, but then it's like, well, what can I do to make that go away kind of thing, as opposed to, this is just, I'm going to sit here for a minute, not even sulk, but just, it was the heaviness. And maybe I needed that cleanse or release. Obviously, no, maybe, right? I was crying like a baby. I needed that cleanse or release to get back to tranquility. So I love that, the name of your podcast, and just that idea of tranquility.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for being with us, Elayne. I'm so
Thank
excited for your
you.
book.
Oh, thank you so much. If folks want to check it out, you can go to getoverigottit.com. You can pre-order. We have some free study guides and some other things there. You can get an exercise about defining your all that we talked about too. So we have a bunch of things there that hopefully will have you be able to engage with the book in different ways. So getoverigottit.com.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kimberly. This was beautiful. Thank you.
You could find Elayne at elaynefluker.com, ELAYNEFLUKER.com. Over on Facebook at Elayne Fluker, Instagram, Elayne Fluker, YouTube, and podcast is elaynefluker.com/podcast. Also, you can find her amazing book at getoverigottit.com. Read along with us in this month's online book club pick, which is 2 beautiful books of poetry. You can do this at the TDJ Insiders Facebook group, where we share resources, get inspiration, make connections, and be part of the online book club. Also, if you would like to receive weekly doses of love to your inbox, you can sign up for those in the show notes or at kimberlywilson.com/love notes. Of course, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Tranquility du Jour, my 6 books and planner, and then also the locally sewn, eco-friendly clothing line TDJ. So there's a link to all this and more in the show notes. Thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to pick up Elayne's new fabulous book, Get Over I Got It. And I hope to see you next time. Have a great, great week.